Hello everybody, Necromancer for Kids here once again, this time with a deck that's maybe familiar to everyone as Chaos Turbo, but I made some changes to make a bit more original and interesting, in my opinion, with the addition of Emissary of the Afterlife, which makes the deck a bit more aggro in a way, while also still keeping to the theme of getting advantage and dumping lights and darks into your graveyard. Just going to jump right into things here. The deck starts with Blackluster Soldier Envoy at the beginning, of course, and we have one Breaker the Magical Warrior, which is just a good aggressive dark monster that gets you a plus when you play it. Two Chaos Sorcerers. The idea of the deck, of course, is to turbo out the Chaos monsters whenever possible. And we can't really support 3 Chaos Sorcerer. I wouldn't really ever recommend them unless you're a very specific build. Even then, maybe not. I think that having 1 BLS and 2 Sork is the magical numbers. Then we have 3 Dekoichi, which is just good to, get you cards and put a dark in the grave at the same time. It has decent 1400 attack. Then we have 3 Emissary of the Afterlife, which is really what makes this deck different from a typical Chaos deck. It is a level 4 600 Fiend that when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, each player adds 1 level 3 or lower normal monster from their deck to their hand. I actually got the idea to make this deck specifically when I was playing an aggro Exodia deck. I think the one that I have on this channel, in fact, and I realized that I was kind of just playing a worse version of a Chaos Turbo deck that has like 5 dead draws and sometimes wins because of them, but I ended up losing because they were dead draws more often than I was winning. So I was like, well, maybe let's try out something different. And that's when I arrived at this deck here. Emissary of the Afterlife is useful for keeping card advantage and keeping pressure on the opponent. It's like Sangan, except that it has 1600 attack and less targets. For the targets for Emissary of the Afterlife, the big one is going to be Sonic Duck, which is a level 3 vanilla winged beast with 1700 to 700. I picked this one because it has 1700 attack, so it can run over a lot of things, including Tribe Infecting Virus, Unboosted Breaker, Unboosted Blade Knight, things like that. You could run 1 Dragon Zombie in this deck, which has 1600 attack and 0 defense. I opted not to just because I found more often than not I was facing decks where I would rather have the extra attack, and anyway, you're pretty likely to get darks in the grave, especially if you're grabbing the dark off of Emissary of the Afterlife, but that's up to you if you want to play 1 copy of Dragon Zombie in your deck. Then for the third target, which I think 3 is probably the best number in a deck like this, because otherwise you're drawing a whole ton of normals, and if you only have 2, you might draw all of your normals before you even draw your Emissary of the Afterlife. Is Bio.Mage, which is a level 3 light normal monster fairy with 1150 attack and 1000 defense. Unfortunately, there aren't very many good light monsters to choose in a deck like this. If you were playing Metamorphosis or something like that, you could pick something like Moki Moki, but that's about the only light monster you'd want to pick. You only play this because it's a light monster and you can add it to your hand and then discard it. It also very rarely, but sometimes, comes up that it can destroy monsters in defense mode, or put in a tiny bit of damage on the opponent. Being able to run over Sangan if you absolutely had to has come up when I play tested this deck. Then we're also playing 2 Magician of Fates in this deck, just because it's a good light monster and recycles our Trinity pieces is the main reason why you want to use this. The aggro Exodia build used 3, but I realized that it's not quite aggressive enough, and also we had trouble keeping our lights and things like that. We also run 3 Thunder Dragon to help us keep light monsters in our graveyard. We have 1 Tribe-Infecting Virus to take advantage of these cards that we have extra in our hands. As well, clear a bunch of things like monsters that you can't run over and scapegoat tokens. We have 1 copy of Zaborg, the Thunder Monarch, the level 5 Monarch Light with 2400 1000, and when it's tribute summoned, you target 1 monster on the field and destroy it. It can destroy face down monsters, which is the main thing it's used for. It can destroy BLS in that, and you contribute Emissary of the Afterlife and get off its effect, and essentially not lose advantage for tribute summoning. And it does kind of suck that it's mandatory, but you just don't play it when it's not useful, and you keep pressure with your other monsters. I decided to play it over the 3rd Magician of Faith, like I said, to make the deck a little bit more aggressive, and also to take advantage of the fact that we are using a monster that if you tribute it, you get off its effect still. Then of course we're running the trio, Delinquent Duo, Graceful Charity, Pot of Greed. Then we have Heavy Storm, Mystical Space Typhoon, 2 Noblemen and Crossout. It's especially useful here because we don't care too much to have our own cards banished. I mean, in a way, it kind of sucks to have Dekoichi banished, but it also does its job by thinning the deck out. And then we still have the Darks and Emissary, Breaker, and also the Chaos Sorcerers if we needed to discard them as Darks. That's kind of a reason why you would want to run a Dragon Zombie, is because you might Nobleman or your opponent Noblemans and you lose all your Dekoichis. That's up to you again. I found more often than not I wanted to have the 1700 attack though. Then we have Lightning Vortex, same reason that you use Tribe-Infecting Virus. You might be able to replace this with something else in your own build of the deck. I just like to use Lightning Vortex in decks that get advantage or that want cards in the graveyard to use their effects. Some people don't like to use it though. Premature Burial and Snatch Steal for obvious reasons. And we have Call of the Haunted. The trap lineup is something that I changed up a lot in this deck, and I don't know if this is necessarily the optimal way to do it, but what I ended up doing, which I used to have the jars in this deck, but it kind of has anti-synergy with both Thunder Dragon and with our normal monsters, because if we draw into our normal monsters, we can't use Emissary's effect, and if we end up drawing a Thunder Dragon, like on the opponent's turn when you use jar, and then you draw your Thunder Dragon for turn, that can really suck. Very rare to happen, but it actually did come up once. I decided to go with 2 Dust Tornado mained, but you can replace that with other cards that you would prefer. Just helps to get rid of back row, keep yourself more aggressive, keep your opponent from using Snatch Steal on your BLS and such as well. Mirror Force, of course. Raigeki Break to discard our Thunder Dragons or our Bio.Mage or any cards that are clogging our hand to help get Lights and Darks in the grave as well. Ring of Destruction. 2 Sakuretsu Armor help clear the field and protect our monsters against threats that can run over these stat lines. And Torrential Tribute. The side deck is kind of just a generic smattering. I thought about playing Monster Reincarnation in this deck, which can be really powerful to grab BLS or Chaos Sorcerer when we need it, after they already got discarded or used even. But it ended up being a dead card more often than not, so I decided not to use it. You could also use Sinister Serpent in this deck and Sangan, but when I was playing with them, I felt like I wasn't being aggressive enough with the deck. And while Sinister Serpent definitely has synergy with a lot of these cards, like Raigeki Break, I just kept having it in hand and being like, wow, I really wish I had a monster I could be attacking with besides Sinister Serpent right now. So that's why I don't play in the main deck, but if you wanted to, you could probably figure out a way to do that. That's pretty much the deck. Let me know what you guys think, if you have any ideas to change it for yourselves, and if you have any ideas for decks or videos in general that you would like for me to make. Thank you very much and take care.